So if you're trying to figure out which are the best neighborhoods to live in Denver, this video is definitely worth watching because I'm going to be sharing with you two of my personal favorites, as well as where a lot of clients and people that I talk to on a regular basis are choosing as their next home here in Denver. Where are these two neighborhoods? Well, you're going to have to stick around to find out. Let's go. All right, so as I said, today's going to be about two neighborhoods, two suburbs that are on the north and west side of Denver, and two that are incredibly popular right now with a lot of my friends, family, as well as a lot of clients, especially some viewers like yourselves on YouTube that reach out and connect with me that way. So all that info down below. If you are interested in connecting, feel free to reach out. I got a ton of free, valuable resources, as well as doing every single month live homebuyer webinars. It's not what you're typically used to seeing. We go in depth on all kinds of great stuff, sharing strategies that are working today to help people win in this very unique Denver market. But enough of that spiel. Let's go ahead and get started. What are these two neighborhoods? Well, it's going to be Westminster and Thornton. So starting off with Westminster. Westminster is located just to the north and west of downtown Denver. And right now in 2025, the median sales price in Westminster is hovering right at $550,000. One thing I really like about Westminster is the price tag and inventory of homes here. You have a lot of different styles to choose from. We're talking mid-century modern, even stuff that's older, more in the turn of the century bungalow style homes, all the way up to new construction. So you really do have a very diverse selection of homes when you're searching in Westminster, which I think is a big plus. And one thing that's really cool about Westminster, I grew up in Wheat Ridge, which is a little bit to the south of Westminster. And back in the day, we used to go up here to Westminster and hang out at the Westminster Mall and do the loop. Basically like something out of the 60s where you would just get in cars and just drive this loop and, maybe roll down your window and wave at girls or, just kind of being stupid as kids in high school. But the reason I bring that up, this Westminster Mall has actually been a focal point and a talking point for many years. It's pretty run down and they are just in the early stages of completely transforming this area. And I think it's going to be one of the biggest up and coming draws and really selling points for people to choose living in Westminster. So if you are maybe considered about buying a home, this could be a great opportunity to be kind of strategic and get in early, let that development take place and just see property values go up significantly more than maybe other more developed parts of Denver. And then one last thing about price tag and inventory in Westminster. Part of Westminster borders Highway 36. This is a road that's very convenient to get up to Boulder if you live in Denver. And there is a lot of new build communities in this area specifically. So if you are more curious and want to learn about what new communities are out there, new build homes, this is definitely a spot to check out. Just look and focus more on the areas surrounding that Highway 36 thoroughfare to and from Boulder. Okay, so now let's talk for a minute about Thornton. So Thornton is basically just due north of downtown Denver. I actually used to property manage several apartment communities in Thornton, so I'm quite familiar with this area, and this is something that I have really seen as a major shift over the last 2 decades. When I went to high school in Denver about 25 years ago, Thornton used to be an area that really just didn't have a ton of high regards or really did not have much going for it. It was just a little bit of a sleepier area with, and not too many restaurants, bars, theaters, just stuff that bring people there for fun. So we didn't really talk about Thornton all that much. But nowadays, 20 years later, this is definitely an area that I see as one of the fastest growing parts of Denver. It's a little bit on the more affordable side in comparison to other areas around Denver, which is, I think, a big part of this. But also, it is just very convenient to get to and from Denver. So there's no brainer why this is a more popular area. But let's talk again, some of those same points that I shared with you about Westminster. When it comes to the median sales price in 2025, it was a little bit lower than Westminster, and it actually came in at $510,000. As you can imagine, as I just told you about how Thornton really is more of an up-and-coming area, there isn't a ton of home inventory that is the older style of homes. You will find some, but there's definitely a lot more new build communities and new construction. I would say anything from about 2000 and newer, you're going to find a lot more frequently than the older style of homes. And then one last tip too, while I'm talking about Thornton, don't count out another area known as North Glen. So It's right next to Thornton. It also has some great options, especially with those new build communities and also a lot of condos. So to kind of wrap up this first point, Westminster, Thornton, which one is best when it comes to price tag and inventory, just the housing options? I'm going to put this one in Thornton's corner, just for the reason that it has a little bit more to offer with the new build communities. It's also just a little bit more affordable. And I think this is an area that's continuing to grow, and we'll see that same level of amenities that Westminster is bragging about with this new redevelopment of Westminster Mall. Thornton kind of has that same thing going on already, and when you're comparing two that are kind of complete and finished at the same time, I'm not sure which one will kind of be better than the other, but I think overall, with housing options and just affordability, Thornton is going to be my pick for price tag and inventory. Okay, so now I just want to talk a second about outdoor lifestyle with these two areas. So first, let's talk about Westminster. One of the areas I love about Westminster is the Big Dry Creek, and I've actually heard them brag that they have over 150 miles of trail system all throughout this area in Westminster, which is pretty cool. It also borders with Arvada, sharing Stanley Lake, and I love Stanley Lake. It's got some of my favorite views where you can look out all the way to the northwest and see the Flatirons and Boulder, but you can also look all the way southwest and see Golden. So just this very unique, expansive view of the Rocky Mountains, and more so just the foothills to the Rocky Mountains. And then one last thing with the outdoor lifestyle with Westminster, they have one of the best, most popular outdoor dog parks where you can have your dog off leash, and that's the selling point here. Pretty rare to find off-leash dog parks in Denver, and what I love about the one in Westminster is it's so large. You really do have space to kind of spread out. You just don't have this, mob of dogs everywhere. So definitely worth checking out if you guys have some furry friends and you want to check out one of the best outdoor dog parks in all of Denver, and it happens to be here in Westminster. Okay, so now let's talk about Thornton and its outdoor lifestyle. Not quite as much, in my opinion, to Westminster. I think since it is still just a newer community, it does have some parks and trails that were built when new build communities get established. But as far as outside of that and more of these large open spaces, Thornton just doesn't have nearly as much as Westminster. And also, from a view standpoint, since Thornton is a little bit to the east of Westminster, you still have some really incredible views, but you're further away. And it just tends to, for me at least, be more of just this distance. It's more of just like a backdrop more than actual impressive views that you have when you're maybe taking your dog for a walk or out on a mountain bike ride, where it's not right up against you like you do have in parts of Westminster. So with all that being said, I'm going to edge out and put this one to Westminster's corner. So Thornton kind of took round one. I'm going to give Westminster round two for outdoor lifestyle. This has more to offer. I also love the fact you also have Stanley Lake accessibility, and just those views are a little bit better in my opinion. And now for the tiebreaker, let's go ahead and talk about the third kind of deciding factor here for Westminster and Thornton. And I want to talk about walkability. So walkability as a realtor is something that I hear almost on a daily basis, especially with any potential clients that are moving from out of state and relocating here to Denver. This is just such a popular thing for people. They really have a high level of importance on outdoor lifestyle, but specifically being able to walk or at least a short bike ride to restaurants and bars and parks and trails and farmers markets, all of that good stuff. So both of these two places, Westminster and Thornton, I gotta be honest with you guys, neither of these really are the best when it comes to walkability, but they each have a few things that are working for them in their favor. So first, let's talk about Westminster. So it definitely has kind of historically never had a downtown part of Westminster. But as I said earlier in this video, talking about that Westminster Mall redevelopment, that is 100% going to be their walkability area in Westminster once it's complete. And I've heard it's going to take, upwards of 8 to 10 years to be completely finished. And especially with some of the new built communities that are going to start popping up surrounding it, more mixed use stuff where you might have apartments above and businesses down below. And all that stuff's going to take time, but once it's done, I think Westminster finally is going to have some great walkability specifically for that part of Westminster. Now with Thornton, it's kind of in that same bag as Westminster where it doesn't really have a downtown area. And in fact, it really doesn't even have a kind of a condensed area with lots of restaurants and bars, all that stuff that you can just walk to or ride your bike to. Thornton has a little bit more of just that commercial feel. And when I say commercial, a lot of still retail shopping and that kind of stuff, but it's just these larger, big areas full of shops, shopping centers. So you have very convenient access to pretty much anything you need to get when it comes to the big box stores. But if you're looking more for, getting off work, hopping on your bike with your partner and maybe riding to a locally owned restaurant for dinner, it's out there, but you're gonna have a pretty hard time finding it, and the amount of those is pretty few and far between. So I think with Thornton not having that, this one is pretty obvious. I'm gonna give this round 3, I'm gonna give it to Westminster. And not just for where it's at today, but more so that optimistic, seeing into the future and what I really think is gonna be awesome once it's complete, which again is that Westminster Mall redevelopment. All right, guys, so there you have it, Westminster, Thornton, 2 areas that I haven't done a ton of videos on before. So I wanted to at least put something out there for you guys to have a little bit more substance and local knowledge from somebody like myself that was born and raised here and have still spent a lot of time in both of these places. So if you guys have any opinion yourself on either of these, leave a comment down below. I'd love just to hear your feedback. And before we get out of here, I also just want to do one last offer for you. I don't know if you guys have already received these, but I have several free guides. I've got them on my website. I'd love also just to send you a copy for free. So just click that link down below and I'll get one of these sent directly over to you. I've got about 4 or 5 of these, but I think 2 that are really important, especially for people like yourselves that might be relocating or considering relocating from out of state to Denver. First off, I've got this buyer guide that just talks through A to Z, everything you might need to know about buying a home in Denver, Colorado. But the one that I really wanted to show you is this one. And this one is actually called my Locals Guide to Denver, or a relocation guide. And what I do is I actually share 20 of my favorite neighborhoods coming from a Colorado and Denver native, best places that I think are awesome for not only living, but also just for spending time in farmers markets, bars, restaurants, some of the best parks and trails. So all of that good stuff that are really kind of hard to find the truth about what is and isn't a great spot to go. So I'm giving you guys my word, there's some great spots in here, and I'd love to give this to you for free as well. So both of those could be available if you just click that link down below. And until next week, hope you have a great rest of your week. Don't forget, hit that like and the subscribe button. Share the show with a friend if you have anybody else that's considering Denver, Colorado. And until next week, I'll see you then. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.